Thanks, Jess and Zoe, for joining me. It's going to be so cool to hear your different perspectives on what we did as an eight together in 2016. We were given some prompt questions, which is very good because otherwise we really could go off some topics. And the first one, which kind of blew me away, was to Jess and I. We've been to a combined 8 Olympics, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you've been to most of them, but yeah. I've been to 3, and you're famous 5-time Fran, so yeah, that's a lot of them between. Yeah.
Do you think that to me it really felt a culmination? Like for me it was a culmination personally, but also because, especially because you had been through all these Olympic experiences in the 8, I could really tell you were pulling it all together, and you just brought this great perspective and reflection to make sure we were keeping on track and learning from everything that you'd done before, as well as keeping open to new learning. So I think 4 of us that hadn't been in the 8 before, maybe more, I don't know, but did it feel like that to you?
Yeah, I mean, I reflect on this a bit. Obviously, we had Katie and Mel, who'd also been to quite a few games before that. So we had a real mix in our 8. But yeah, I was a real veteran of the games, it being my 3rd, and of the women's 8. And just trying to have a think about what I felt that I brought that was different to a new first timer to the games was probably just a bit more focus on knowing what I wanted to do. And you can never take away someone's first games experience because it's amazing, but I could almost filter out what was background noise, what were the things to appreciate, and then me looking to you as well for those things, because I remember looking to you in Beijing and in London and in Rio again to have that kind of person who knows what bits to appreciate. So we might have walked around the village and you would say, right guys, really soak this bit up. and it really did make a difference because we didn't get caught on too much of a tangent of the things that were there to distract us, but you really made us appreciate the Olympic experience because you're really embedded in it. I think it's really it shines out of you, and I think it was important to have you around as well as intermediate people around. What do you think you brought to it then after your coming into your 5th games?
Well, I did definitely have a sense of, well, this is my last chance. And I had crossed a couple of finishing lines and felt pretty relieved it was over. So I really wanted to make sure that for everyone, no matter what the result, we thought, yeah, this was really worth doing. This was a really positive experience. And you know what, we're Olympians, and it's it's easy to forget. You work so hard just to try and get in the team, and it's so easy to forget that when you're there, and then you're trying to aim to do really well at the game. So almost like keep pressing the pause button and saying, look, it's amazing we're here, and it's so cool the way that we're working together, and we should really, really appreciate that. So I tried to bring that, and less of a kind of we've got to go fast, and more of a calmness, I guess. But what did it feel like to you, Zoe? Because you'd been in the 8 in 2015, and it was such a pressurized thing to do, as Jess knows as well, to qualify. And I guess we were quite a different crew. We were 4 people different.
I think 2015 felt quite different, and I think for me personally, the combination of people that we had was really important for the crew. To have the difference in, someone who's been to 5 games, someone who's, been to 3, and people who have, who this is their first time at it. And I think what worked was that regardless of people's previous experience, everyone was given a fair chance to bring something to the table. So it didn't matter if you were, you'd been to 5 games or you'd been to none. We all still had the same importance in the team. And I don't know whether you know or realise this, Fran, but I think you were quite vital in that, actually, because when you first came into the 8, which was obviously relatively late in the process of, a 4-year cycle, you with your experience, you probably could have come in and really kind of stamped your mark on things very hard, but you didn't. And you actually came in, and I remember one of the earliest things you saying to the group was, well, I don't know how to row in an 8. You guys all know how to row in an 8 much better than I do. And actually, that's really important. I need to learn from you. You need to teach me that. Yeah. And I think because of that, it allowed, even those people like, Zoe, Olivia, Karen, myself, Polly, who yes, it was our first games, but we had more experience in eights than you did. And actually, it meant that straight away we felt like, oh no, this isn't someone who's coming in who's just gonna, tell us what we need to do. Yeah, but actually, this is someone who's going to be part of the team, and we will teach her as much as she will teach us. And I think that was actually really important to the way that the crew functioned.
I'd like to segue into the different, because we touched on it a bit there, the different personality types and how do we bring, and it's a question I get asked a lot, because the eight's so different. First of all, we've got over double the amount of people that any other boat class has got. So we're kind of our own team within the team. And I think people sometimes think in my line of work now, we were kind of 9 alpha females just out there smashing the world up, but it's much more nuanced than that. And I think it'd be interesting to hear what your take is and how we blended the different personalities and how we made that work to be one fast rowing boat.
I think what really struck me from the first time I sat in the 8 was how much we sort of celebrated the difference in our personalities and said, this is great because we're not going to have blind spots. We've got all these different perspectives. And instead of thinking, oh, a champion is a carbon copy of whatever we've seen sort of happen before, and has whatever physical attributes, or, is just so focused on winning. Actually, we didn't approach it like that at all. We approached it like we had this really special richness. And that really struck me because that was the first time I'd experienced it being so sort of positively pulled out and celebrated.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was definitely a case of everyone grew to understand how other people in the boat functioned. And we did, we talked a lot about it. That was the thing. I think, it's nice to think, oh, we all got on really well. It was really easy, but we actually worked really hard. We worked really hard to bring people together and to make sure that we all communicated in the same way and that we all had a shared language and we understood how to communicate with each other. It was something that I think we really did spend a lot of time kind of trying to improve and chip away at. And, all our things about having difficult conversations and, really kind of getting that sense of trusting and believing in each other. And that all built from the sort of general sort of openness. And I think, like you say, with different personality types, it can be easy for some people to feel like they're being sort of railroaded over a little bit. But kind of going back to what we said before, there was always the sense that everyone's opinion was valid and that, people should feel that in a debrief, they could either say, yes, I agree, or they could say, actually, no, I felt differently about that. And I think that was really important.
I think that's a really good point, Zoe, as well, that actually we did have difficult conversations and they were really difficult at the time. It wasn't like we got on really well and we sat around the table and said, hey, we're going to have one of those difficult conversations. Like it was really difficult. Some subjects were really difficult to bring up, to address, to handle different people's reactions at the time. But the important thing was that we did it and we saw it through and we supported each other sort of out the other side of it. And I think, Zoe, you had such a huge part in that. And I know in my book I say, the coxing is about so much more than steering straight, because you really I felt like you took so much time to really understand people. And so, when we were coming last in the Olympic final, you knew what buttons to press and who needed a real kind of motivational, you can do this, and someone else needed a bit of encouragement or a technical cue or something like that. And it was just so vital, and also such a positive way to bring yourself to the project.
I guess Zoe doesn't have a choice of what boat class she rows in. She's always going to be in the 8. So actually, you've rowed more 8s than any of us. 8s than any of us. With your boat race experience and your under 23s and your junior level stuff, you are the only person that stays in the same boat class. And I think that's a really interesting seat to and view to take of the 8. And I wondered how you dealt with that and what different perspectives you bring to a crew rather than one of us big oafs that sit in the middle of the 8.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a role. Generally, coxing is a role that you have to have a bit of flexibility towards. And like you say, Fran, there are going to be people who might need a bit of a kick up the bum while someone else needs kind of calming down. We've got to make sure that Jess doesn't go off too hard. And then we've got to make sure that...
Never happened.
And then we've got to make sure that, people people kind of contain themselves in the right way, or, you know, open up when they need to. And I think one of the things that I've always worked hard on is about being flexible. So I've been in crews where actually the crew really just needs calming down. You know, if it goes off too much, things go wrong. And I've been in crews where maybe they need a bit more hand holding, or people just need a bit more tidying up around the edges and just being told what to do at the right time, kind of thing. And I think having that flexibility is really important, and just knowing what you need at different times, I guess, you know, when the crew needs to be kind of focused, and when the crew needs to be given something to relax them a bit. And I mean, I'm, you know, can be a bit of a joker, obviously. So usually for me, that was cracking a joke or singing something stupid, or I don't know, just generally.
Not in the Olympic final, though. You didn't.
Not in the Olympic final. No.
You know, we are the champions.
No. Then I did listen to a recording of one of our training sessions. I was trying to find some racing recordings, and I found one of our training sessions, and the entire first minute was just me laughing hysterically. And I have no idea. And so I thought, what's going on here? And I skipped forward about 10 or 15 minutes, and I got to another section of all of us just laughing hysterically. And I could hear Jess shouting from the middle of the boat. I could hear James, who was obviously in the launch next to us. I could hear him laughing as well. So I don't know what we got done in that session other than just sat there laughing at each other.
I don't know if anybody knew this, but we'd branded ourselves, and we actually had merchandise. Yep, we're that professional. We had merch. And our identity, our tagline was to be sassy. I wonder if Zoe and Fran could chat. I think I remember where the sassy thing came from. But
I think I remember where it came from too.
Yeah. Go on, Zoe.
So I'm pretty sure what happened was we were in Brandenburg, and we were training on the course, and I think the men's 8 came past and basically said something like cheeky to us.
Like every day they did that. But
yeah, they did every day. And then this time, Fran shot something back, like really quite...
sassy.
Well, I think that they were doing hands only, and they gave us a whole load of grief. And so I just shouted back, well, why don't you use your legs? You'd go faster.
Yeah, that was right. And then I think one of us, probably you or I, Jess, said something like, "Oh, Fran, very sassy." And then it just went from there. And I just think it was hilarious because some of the crew absolutely hated it. That was the funny thing.
Greavesy hate.
Yeah. But I think the thing that was nice about it is it wasn't about the word or, you know, whatever. It was about creating a team atmosphere. And like Jess said earlier, you know, the 8 is a huge part of the team, the sheer number of people. And we kind of had talked about how we wanted to have a presence, basically. So we wanted to arrive at a regatta and, you know, feel like we had some sort of, team atmosphere within our crew. And, you know, we would make these sort of statements about our identity. And it didn't matter how silly that was, but it was something that we'd all just, you know, buy into the sort of bigger picture of, essentially. That's my memory. Jess, is that right?
It was Fran, unlikely person to be super sassy. She chooses her words wisely, and then we just laughed about it. And I think that exactly that. I don't think it necessarily means that we went around being horrible to people or being like, we are sassy.
Yeah.
We were going to do our own thing, and we were not going to be too bothered about the consequences of how it might look, because we were trying to make our boat go really fast.
I think also it's quite useful to have a crew identity, even if, I mean, obviously I wouldn't call myself a sassy person, but, you know, when you're waiting to race and you're really nervous, but you know that the crew, this is what the crew identity is, you've got something to lock into, sort of take yourself out of yourself or wherever you are in that moment. You know, in other crews we had, I mean, much less personality focused things, but it might have been ruthless simplicity or, you know, something like that, which just brings you into a collective focus.
I mean, as we covered the next one, I think the next one's about how the different individual personality types blended together. But I think we kind of chatted about that a bit before. But I think the personality type thing for me was probably the biggest insight we did was personality testing. And we I've done it before. I did it in lots of different years of my rowing career, but we did this big set of testing to just to see how we all responded, and we had a really interesting conclusion to that, and we were all very different. I don't think any of us were exactly the same, but we kind of balanced each other out all the way down the boat. And everyone's take on that, but I thought that was probably a really, really important thing we did. And I think it was important in the terms of the personality testing told us how people would react to different situations. We had the kind of the people that could be empathetic, and we had the leaders, the fun people, and the analysts, and we were a real range of all those things. And I think that testing, we got told off in the testing, so we were laughing too much. But I think that's a massive way that we blended our personality types and understand each other better. I don't know what you thought about those testing things we did.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really gave me an awareness of myself, but and my impact of me on others. So I think it's really easy to think, oh, isn't it great that I really like to analyze stuff and I'm really focused and I'm, just tunnel visioned on, where we want to get to. But then you see like someone else that actually wants to have some fun in their life and you think, oh God, I must be horrible to be around, But then you think, oh, hang on a minute. Okay, right, I'm taking away someone else's energy and that is not going to help. And I definitely saw myself in that last year as trying to make sure all the energy was moving in the right direction, because I wasn't going to get much fitter. I mean, I could row, but, in 8 months, I was going to get a bit better technically, but, I was sat in a 3-seat. It wasn't that, hopefully I just was going to keep it tapping along. But the most thing I could do was make sure that collectively our energy was moving in the right direction. We were staying on course, that we weren't unnecessarily imploding, say, in the week before the Olympics, because people had upset each other. And I'd seen that and experienced that, and we all know that that's so unnecessary and just so frustrating.
And you certainly weren't tapping it along the 3-seat. You think you broke a world record on your 5K, and you could.
I did, yeah, over 30s.
Yeah.
I'm not going to attempt it at the over 40s. I'll leave it where that lies.
Your half hour ago was something silly like 1:48 at rate 20, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it might have been 7.9. Yeah, just
7.9. Sorry for cutting you down there, but so is doing herself a disservice saying that she just she was.
What was funny was when I phoned Concept 2 to get my certificate, he said, "Well, we'll keep your name on record in case you break another one." And I was like, "Mate, I'm not doing another one of those. Are you kidding me?"